while the record industry is facing difficulties, the music industry is booming. I'd say the consumption of music is higher than it's ever been, and I don't think there's been a time when people are listening to, sharing, talking about music as much as they are today. So obviously, while the internet has made it difficult to monetize products that are easily be replicated, like digital music, it hasn't yet had such a negative effect on unique experiences like live shows, which means there's a lot of opportunity in this space. So I would say social networks and technology now make it easier than ever for fans to talk about live shows, spread the word about live shows, and that's what this panel has been asked to speak about today. So to start, I'd like to just have everyone introduce themselves, say your name, where you're from, and why you were asked to be on this panel.
My name is Justin Karr. I'm the Director of Technology Programs for Fractured Atlas, a national nonprofit art service organization. We are developing an open source event ticketing system called Athena, and that is why I was asked to be on this panel.
I'm Donna Westmoreland. I'm the C.O.O. of I.M.P, which is the company that owns the 930 Club. I was invited to be on the panel probably because we're in town. And we recently, we abandoned our Ticketmaster contract at Meriwether Post Pavilion, a venue we also own, or operate, I'm sorry, and also at the 930 Club to go with Ticketfly, which is ticketing 2.0, much like what the other people are getting to.
Hi, my name is Svetlana Legetic, and I'm one of the founders and editor of Brightest Young Things, which is a DC-based website dedicated to music and culture and everything else that's good and exciting in DC. And I guess I was invited because we work actually pretty closely with the venues in the city and just launched a platform that is supposed to sort of promote ticket sales in relation to the content on the site, as opposed to just as like flat advertising and shoving of information down your throat, so to speak. So, hi.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm the founder and CEO of Songkick, which is a site for fans to find out about concerts on. So the way it works is you sign up, you give us access to your iTunes library, and then from that point onward, if any of the bands that you've listened to in the past come to your city, we email you before tickets go on sale. And 2 million people are now using us a month all over the world. And we spend a lot of time thinking about how to very quickly and easily tell fans about the concerts they want to hear about and buy tickets. The other thing we do is after a concert's finished, fans can go on there and they can share their memories of the show, whether it's the photos they took or the set list or the posters from the show. And fans have now built that into an archive of about 1.6 million concerts going back to the 50s. And I think that that content is also kind of partly what our site uses to drive people to go to more shows and buy more tickets.
Yeah, so it's actually a really cool panel because there's a lot of different perspectives here. You've got Songkick came out of nowhere a couple years ago and has become the second most popular ticket destination on the web as far as finding out what shows are going on. So a huge database. Then there's another version of that that's much more local, much more curated, and has more of a touch point with the local audience. One of the best venues that I've ever been to. And obviously, Ian was talking about it back in the green room, like a venue that's loved nationwide, and then someone who's building technology to actually that a lot of people could use on the panel, and a lot of other venues could use. So it's a really interesting perspective, and it's going to be a challenge and an opportunity to get everyone to tell, to weave this into a story. But I first wanted to talk about the change in the live music scene and what you guys feel has changed over the past 5 years with a lot of the new technology, with the social networking tools and the online software that's out there. How has this affected sort of all of you with your different perspectives?
Well, I know that obviously advertising has changed a lot, and what's interesting is on the larger acts and in the label-driven acts, in the more traditional model acts, they haven't really gotten there yet, but we sell out a lot of shows virally before they're even advertised in the newspaper, often before they're even posted on our website, just by through fan sites, through the circulation of links. shows, we have to hold tickets back so that we can make sure that nobody feels left out.
So those are the artists that are driving those sales, not necessarily your marketing team. It's now the artists that are being able.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And these are, these are very often artists that are at the cusp, or aren't even household names yet, but they've got Edward Sharpe, for example, all kinds of acts that, I would say probably 8 or 9 a month that sell out before they even have to be advertised, per se. And then there's the more traditional ones that want to insist on the breaking ad and all of that, and it becomes cumbersome even, instead of
So it's more of a challenge to do it the old way than...
instead of following its natural flow.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think the big change that happened over the last 5 years is probably that so much more music is more accessible to more people everywhere, which is probably why touring, revenue, I guess, has like risen exponentially, even if like the record sales have like dropped, because, obviously with like the internet, with, viral spreading of whatever, leaking, tweeting, everything else, there is no reason why a band now cannot tour like a tiny town that before, never would have had a chance to see them. And I think, though, at the same time, there is now this sort of saturation because there is so much information out there. And you kind of have to really care about a band, I feel, to want to see them. The kind of like the novelty of seeing a band has like worn off a little bit because like everything is, like being touted by the internet as like the next buzz band, the next, hype thing and stuff. So while it's at the same time easier for the bands to reach an audience and get on some level and get people to come out to shows, it is also harder because people are becoming, more and more jaded and discerning about what they're going to spend their money and time on.
Well, and speaking, like, Ian, your whole goal is to make sure that no one ever misses a show. So how is, kind of touching on what some of the things that you just said, how do you feel things have evolved?
Yeah, well, I think there's kind of 5 layers in the stack. There's the booking of a show, the discovery of a show, the ticketing of a show, the experience of being at a show, and the experience after the show is finished. And I think all 5 layers have been disrupted pretty substantially in the last 5 years. So on the booking side, you really just have old school companies like Polestar starting to have that data challenged by the data that either bands themselves have in terms of knowing we have like 10,000 fans in this city, we can sell this out, or the data that services like Demanded are building up, Eventful's product. On the ticketing level, I think that as more and more ticketing has moved online, Ticketmaster's value proposition around the service fees has got less and less tenable and less sustainable. And you've seen more and more kind of entrants enter that market offering more than just the service fee and offering things like better social promotion like someone like Ticketfly is doing or Eventbrite. On the discovery level, there's people like us really trying to get the word out about the show and make sure that it sells out. And then during the show, it's all changed with mobile. Like 5 years ago, it was everyone holding up their cameras in the air. Now it's everyone holding their mobile phones. And that means that whatever happens at the show is online almost instantaneously, and that changes the dynamic of how content is shared at shows. And then finally, we think post-show we've created a way for fans to really aggregate that content. So I think there's been a ton of change all the way through the stack. But probably the most exciting thing I've seen is the curve that everyone knows about is the exponential growth curve in live music sales over the past 20 years. And what no one ever really talks about is you can superimpose on top of that the curve of the sales that have been contributed to that by the top 100 artists. And the top 100 artists have actually been selling less proportionally of the tickets that are being sold every year. And more it's the small and medium-sized bands that are making a bigger contribution to the touring revenue. Yep. So I think overall it's in a really, really good place.
So Justin, outside of just strictly the music world, how have you seen things change for the kind of groups you work with or the...
Well, I think Ian hit it on the head, and Donna probably has some good things to say about this too, but in terms of the tools that are available for people to ticket, it's just been a sea change in 5 years. There's so many more vendors in the space now delivering products that are not just better fundamentally, but are much more niche targeted. You get ticketing providers who really focus on concerts who really focus on conferences, you know, and the barrier to entry for developing sort of an enterprise ticketing solution has come down so far that a lot more people can do it. And I claim that that's resulted in much better tools for venues and actually cheaper prices because ticket service fees have had to come down for consumers, although I do not have the data, so I cannot state that as a true fact.
Well, we can hope.
We can hope.
Well, and I mean, so many of these shows are, you know, kind of like the lower price points that we're talking about. You know, it's not the top 100 selling artists. You know, we're talking about $20 tickets and stuff like that. So the ticketing fee became, you know, such like a substantial part of what you spent on the ticket. So like the ticket sellers had to become obviously more and more competitive because I'm not going to buy, you know, a $20 ticket and spend $6 on it on like service charges. Like it's not, you know, no one that reads BYT wants to do that. I can assure you of that. You know?
I'm sure that, I mean, Justin's probably the most aware of this, but there's like some pretty fundamental changes in the technology landscape that are driving this outside of whatever's going on in music, right? So the classic is that historically, one of the things that Ticketmaster could offer their clients in terms of online ticket sales is say, when you put a Bryan Adams on sale on, we won't fall over. You know, we can promise that. We have this shit ton of capacity and we can handle it. And the way they did that is by buying huge amounts of infrastructure, like huge capital expenditure. But now, you know, there's been this massive wave over the last 5 years of cloud computing, which means that you have ways to ticket that high demand without having to spend a huge amount of capital up front, which means that, you know, new entrants can come into a market and not just target the long tail, but target the middle and top tail shows.
Yeah, it's funny. People always talk about Ticketmaster having this great infrastructure. I remember trying to get tickets to the HF Festival when I was younger. It was always a nightmare. It would always go down. I mean, it was never a smooth process. But it is funny because there's so much opportunity for startups even to build this infrastructure because technology is so cheap right now. We talked a lot about certain tools, or we talked about tools in general and how all this technology, and obviously the panels about social networks, how all this has contributed to a change in ticketing. Let's get a little bit more specific, and what are you guys seeing as the most effective things that, whether it's artists, whether it's promoters, kind of the whole ecosystem, like what are the things that are really contributing the most out of all the tools? Because there's tons of stuff out there. Because to anyone who wants to jump in.
You guys are more in the space than I could.
Well, for example, Ticketfly, our new ticketing company at the club, they have a Facebook amplifier that we actually don't utilize yet, only because of a technicality between our website and their solution. But ultimately, you can buy a ticket, populate your Facebook page, say, I'm going to this, who else wants to come?
Yeah, so I guess that maybe to get more specific and not to zero in on that one, but like how important is Facebook? How important is, and I guess I'll lump Twitter in with that because
I think it's pretty important. You know, I mean, we always say like you can never like underestimate people's desire to overshare. You know, with everyone. I mean, both like Facebook and Twitter and Foursquare, like the whole concept of, you know, this is where I'm going, come find me here. You know, this is what's up. It's a huge part of it. You know, when we developed this event management, you know, system that actually is sort of intended to sell tickets, a big part of it is that you're letting everyone know on Facebook, you know, that this is what you're doing. So for every person that sees it exponentially, like 500 of their friends might consider doing this on a Friday night as well. And actually, like so many more people when we spoke to the venues, you know, cared about the social media sharing than whether there would be a live like get ticket link on it, you know? Because like theoretically everyone will find their way to buy this ticket, but how do you find out about the show, you know, because your friends want to go?
I think there's one, I mean, when we see people buy tickets through our site, and we don't sell tickets, we link to people like Ticketfly or Ticketmaster or TicketWeb, the average number of tickets purchased is about 2.5 per show. And I think that you need to kind of look at the ways that the different people in that transaction find out about it. And there's first of all the person who finds out about the show ahead of everyone else, and they usually find out because they love the artist. And for that person, we think that extremely targeted email is by far and away the most effective way to reach them. So we have giant email lists now. We send out hundreds of thousands of emails, and we get an over 50% open rate on those emails, which is huge for internet email stuff. And the reason for that is we're telling people about things that they specifically asked us to tell them about. Like, tell me when Mos Def comes to Washington, D.C. And then we'll only email them if that kind of thing happens, not some random piece of spam. And then the second, well, 1.5 people in this transaction are the friends that get pulled along. And that's where the social networks are so critical. Once that person's found the concert they want to go to, make it super easy for them to tell the 2 or 3 other friends they'd like to go with, so that they can quickly and easily decide to do that and go to the show.
So yeah, so let me kind of build on that a little bit, because we talked, Justin and I talked a little bit about this earlier. There's, it's so easy to add a share button on Songkick or wherever. It's like, oh, share, put it in my stream. There it is. And how do you actually engage fans to really help you sell tickets? I mean, it's easy to share, and hopefully maybe some of their friends will see it and click on it. But like, are there ways to engage them even more to really help you sell tickets as an artist?
I definitely think that sort of one of the things that I wouldn't say has happened in the last 5 years, but is happening kind of right now, is that Facebook in particular is sort of re-legitimizing the secondary market in an interesting way. Because what's happening now is people are sharing something, and then they're getting feedback from their immediate community of friends about who would go to see the show with them, and they're buying a bunch of tickets. And then they're effectively becoming a totally legitimate and totally cool reseller of those tickets to their peers. And in sort of the classic definition, they are brokers. They're not scalpers. They're not charging more for the tickets by any stretch of the imagination, but they have become secondary market sellers. We see this happening, and it's okay. Like, certainly, it's something we want to encourage even. And I think that is kind of what you're talking about. So the idea that we're starting to see tools that actually help people buy tickets together. The barrier to entry, of course, on buying tickets for your friends is you need to have the cash to buy all the tickets right away, or the credit, or be willing to spend a bunch of money up front. What we're starting to see now are these tools that let people do things like self-forming groups, where they can effectively commit to a certain number of tickets, but then the friends would still buy them themselves, and they know that the inventory will be held for them. And we're starting to see some ticketing systems, I mean, not much yet. It's more like the organizations running the ticketing systems are cooler about people effectively reselling tickets and not getting in their way. Even with Disney's totally ticketless on Hannah Montana, where they required people to bring a credit card to the venue, they did make it easy for people who could legitimately indicate that they were the original ticket purchaser and they were transferring it for a legitimate reason, change the name of the ticket. So they totally facilitated that. Now, I'm sure that was abused by some brokers who were fairly clever, but by and large, they achieved their goal.
I think what often is lost in this is the ticket as a contract and the ticket as the way that the artist is ultimately going to get paid. And what needs to be retained to a certain extent is the transactional nature of it and the following of the money, because secondary markets do get dangerous, because if somebody bought a resold ticket and it was perhaps, there's problems with its validity, that person's not getting in, because the barcodes now, everything is so highly tuned that they're not getting in, and we can't help them at that point. As the promoter, as the person that has to pay the artist on a percentage of the ticket revenues, both the artist and we have an interest in making sure of the legitimacy of all of that, and that is something that needs to be weighed in the conversation of secondary marketing and reselling, and even innocuous reselling, because we have our own. On our website, we have our own opportunity to resell tickets without a bump, but you still have to make sure that you're getting them legitimately.
I think you're dead on. I mean, and more importantly, it becomes your customer service problem. It's not the broker's customer service problem.
Right.
And
when we say don't buy tickets from a secondary source, we're not saying it necessarily because we don't want you to have access to those tickets, but because it does become our customer service problem, and that person is left out in the cold.
Now, certainly in sports right now, right? So the NFL has been running a big ad campaign about their resale marketplace, and they're really promoting the idea now that you can. I mean, really, what the ad is saying is you can afford to invest in tickets because now you can legitimately transfer them if you need to.
And for only 50% of the bump.
I know, it's unbelievable
we'll help you with
what
that.
the fee is, but I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I would be interested to sort of hear from the people involved in concerts how that would work successfully at your level. What a system would look like that would accommodate good reselling, but somehow keep out bad reselling.
Good reselling being social reselling?
Good reselling either being a marketing thing that we have control over or simply a customer service thing to help people deal with tickets that they now have and need to get rid of.
I would prefer to see a network of holding tickets go through the act. Like, you know, bands will hold somewhere between 10 and 50% depending on the ticketing contract, the relationships or whatever. They'll hold between 10 and 50% of the tickets for their fan club. And there's a reasonable period of time, but there's enough time for people to communicate and get the group together, provided that they have the communication opportunity, and everything's instantaneous now, so why wouldn't there be, right? If it takes you a week to decide whether you want to commit to your favorite band or not, then you had your chance, right? And we as a company policy, and I personally, we don't endorse or support secondary ticketing, period. It's just, we don't engage in it. There's money that is left on the table as a result, but I think the more important situation is how do we make the primary market work so that there doesn't need to be secondary ticketing.
I'd argue that the secondary market that you described, Justin, is already working fine in the sense that, people say, I'm going to get some tickets, do you want to come? And then buy a group of tickets. We see people buy 2.5 tickets, so it's clearly working. I think the secondary market's a very tricky thing to navigate. Our stance on it as a company is basically we don't really think it's a great thing, but we're also in the business of making sure people can get to the show. So if we don't tell them there's inventory that exists, then we're kind of not really fulfilling our role in clarifying what exists, because we're all about letting people know every concert and every ticket that's available for the show and making sure that it's extremely transparent, the price, whether it's secondary, primary market, whatever, and then they can make their decision based on that. Because I think there's plenty of people out there who would really love to go to the show, didn't get their act together in time, and or defer the decision till after the ticket's sold out. And you should present them with an option, and I think that it's really the artist's job to take the secondary market and bring it into a legitimate state rather than leaving it the one it's in right now, where essentially 50% markup is being made by internet companies, not by artists, venues, or anyone who's really involved in putting the show on.
So one of the panel's called Who's Your Ticket Master Now? And I think that kind of is on two sides. On one hand, artists don't have to necessarily sell all their tickets through Ticketmaster. On the other hand, it used to be a huge advantage of Ticketmaster to be able to say to artists, well, if you're not listed on Ticketmaster, no one will ever find your ticket. That's obviously switched, and a lot of the social network stuff has driven that. And I wanted to ask you guys, having sites that people are coming to, and maybe Donna also, the traffic that comes to your sites, how much of it, if you can share or if you know offhand, how much of it comes from social networks? Because once that share link goes out, the best way to see if it works is what your inbound linking is.
Not as much as we'd hoped.
Really?
I can't drop numbers right now, but we've done any amount of Facebook ads and various sort of ways to follow through and to see. We're not seeing the return. We don't think that we never will, but it's really incremental. And as he said, it is our email list that sells these shows out too. And between the fans and our email list, those are the things that sell these shows out. And that's where, that really is where the heft of it is. It's knowing the customer, knowing what they're going to like, and still us controlling reaching them. And the artist can reach their fan too. And I do want to make a quick note about Ticketmaster. It should be, who is your Live Nation Ticketmaster now?
That's a good point.
There's that other element of the beast, right? They especially for a developing artist or an independent artist, there are things that when you play, they won't share their data. They often don't give the email addresses to the bands, which and so it's important that the artist knows that an avenue by which they can control their own information too. Everyone leaves our shows with all of their email addresses in whatever form they want, and then they can go say thank you for coming to our show, and we'll be sure and let you know the next time we come to town. And a lot of our competitors don't allow that opportunity.
I wanted to say, and maybe Donna will agree or disagree, but I think, for example, 930 Club's email list, and for everyone that lives in DC, right? We can all say it's as much of an institution as it is, as the website of the thing is, and because they've over years, built this amazing, obviously audience based on quality of the shows that they've had and the people that they have brought. And the list, it's like one of the largest lists, you know, I mean, people would like kill for the list 930 Club has for their email list. But what I'm trying to say is, and you know that this is where you're going to get your like email list, like pre-sale, you know? This is like, if I'm not getting this email, like those Belle and Sebastian tickets are gone, you know? I remember like this was like my first, this is how I signed up for it. Like Belle and Sebastian, new pornographers were coming like 4 years ago, and I was not on the list, and it sold out in 15 minutes, and I was like, I am never not being on this list again. So I think, you know, so everyone has sort of like a story like that because 930 Club is, you know, such an institution. But I feel like for smaller venues or like, you know, bands even playing like kind of independent shows or like one-off situations and stuff like that, I feel, because we kind of, you know, deal with, you know, from people playing like a 30-person venue to people playing like a multiple thousand-person venue, I think the Twitter and Facebook and whatever in some weird way is still like a tremendously efficient, you know, way for them to spread the word, you know? So. But I mean, I will say like something like 20% of VOIT traffic comes from social networking sites, which is way more than I would like to rely on.
I'm assuming it's really easy to share something once they see a show on Songkick. They can just click share on Facebook.
Yeah,
do you see the people coming back from those?
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of traffic coming back from that. And I think that what's interesting is you don't have to do very much to get it. You just slap a few share buttons up and make it nice and easy. But I think that maybe the core point here is historically, you know, in the who's your Ticketmaster now question, if you were an artist or a venue, the big thing you got from Ticketmaster Live Nation is partly promotion and partly access to their list of like 80 million people or whatever they claimed it was in the last investor report. And what we're seeing is we're starting to better move the needle for bands and for venues and for promoters. So it's not necessarily you have to see Ticketmaster as the only route to that promotion. So we have a lot of bands and labels coming to us at the moment saying, we've got this 10% allocation that we're not selling out. Could we use your list to help sell it? And I think that people are starting to have like a broader view on who their Ticketmaster is. Because sure, they might use Ticketmaster to sell the main, but if they can move their own allocation from 10 to 15 to 25 to 50% just by working with other trusted partners, that's a very compelling proposition to them.
So I've got a question, and Donna, you sort of touched on this, and I don't know if you already gave the answer, but advertising is something I think that's really interesting. Advertising online. At first it was display ads. You hoped you knew who went to the site, but you didn't really understand if anyone was looking at it. Maybe they clicked on it, but you couldn't really target. Then you had Google where you could target what people were looking for, which was a huge step forward. And now with Facebook, you can literally say, you know who people are, where they're from, what they like, what music they're listening to. So theoretically, if you had someone coming to your venue, you could say, I want to advertise to all the people on Facebook in DC who like this band.
Right.
Have you tried that? And anyone can answer how you guys think this is affecting things, but does it work? I mean, because I think a lot of artists are thinking like, oh, should I spend money advertising on Facebook because I can target so much? Or is the 930 Club sort of at a level where most of your acts you don't need to necessarily do that?
I think that for us, we've probably hit those people already. And then by the time we are taking out the Facebook ad, that group is depleted. And we're better served. Our biggest challenge for advertising now, because we know where to find all the people that we need to reach, that we want to reach, our challenge now is competing with other entertainment and finding how to convince people who are not saying, who don't wake up in the morning going, I really want to go to a concert. It's turning those people into concert ticket buyers. That's our challenge now. Because I think that between our email list, our website, our social networking, and partners like BYT, we can reach who we need to reach, a layer above the low-hanging fruit. It's the people that we have to compete with, other entertainment, movies, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Have any of you else done any sort of social network advertising with the targeting?
No, we can't really afford to buy traffic or users. I mean, we've not. But I do think that if I was in the business of spending money to acquire concert goers, I'd look at Facebook as a way of stimulating demand, and I'd look at Google Ads as a way of harvesting intent, and I'd say that, you know, you're going to get more ROI on Google, because at that point someone's just made a social, like me and Svetlana have decided to go and see this band. Like at that point, if I've said I'm going to get the tickets and I'm searching on Google, I've got like a pretty high level of intent. So I think you're going to at the moment get more ROI from Google than Facebook.
We've got about 20 minutes left, and I meant to say this 10 minutes ago. If anyone has any questions or anything, just raise your hand. We'll continue talking if anyone doesn't, but feel free to interrupt. And you want to be our first?
Yeah, I can talk loud. So I want to ask Donna, do you ever do a hard ticket? Would you allow the bands to take hard tickets to resell them?
Yes,
You do
we do consignments, yeah.
You do. Because the question was asked about secondary, going to the secondary market. Giving the band the control
Right.
to do this is, I worked with a band who was playing Paradise, 650 capacity, although it's more now, but at the time it was 650 and sold 300 tickets by themselves
Sure.
at 4 other shows that they did in the New England area. So the show was half sold out.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they were in complete control. We were able to sell them without a service charge, which was an incentive for the people to come to the other shows to buy the ticket,
Right.
but also an incentive to just buy the ticket while they were at the show, as opposed to waiting. You're in love, you have a great time tonight.
Right.
Buy it now, no service charge. So I'm completely against the secondary market selling. I'm so against it. And so I just want to toss that out. I'm glad to hear that you do that for bands. Just, when you were thinking about how you resolve that problem, if the band's having control of that, it's a very good result.
Just to
Well,
quickly
they're not
interrupt.
going to rip you off.
For the
That's for
camera
sure.
guys, would it be better if we did use the mic because this is being streamed? Okay. I'm going to wander around then.
There's a...
Don't misunderstand me. Ticket brokering and scalping is terrible. That's sort of not. I'm not implying that legitimizing that is something that is good or desirable in any way, shape, or form. More of what I was talking about was that, right? So you'll have somebody else who is effectively acting as the ticket seller, and the only way it really works is. I'd like to hope it's a little bit bigger than the band, but it's basically someone who's highly incentivized not to rip you off.
Right.
Right? So I would like to believe that there's a way to identify, and I think social media is probably the answer, super fans who are equally incentivized for moral and emotional reasons not to rip the band off. And that those people potentially, it's not about the hit shows. It's more about the shows that are the intermediate, where you've got somebody who really is into them. They might not have a huge following yet. You're not necessarily going to go to capacity on the show anyways, where you could give someone the leverage potentially to get something back from the band or the show or some identity in their social community, effectively act as a niche marketer on your behalf.
Well, and that's what the fan clubs do. I would say that 60% of at least 60% of our shows have a fan club. The artists have a fan club or a ticketing company that they call a fan club that engages in selling directly to their base at a reduced service charge or an equal service charge, and then the band gets a piece of it. So, these companies, Artist Arena, Music Today, they're all out there, and they do exactly that. They cultivate and cater to specific artist fans.
I guess the interesting idea, though, would be to take it beyond the actual band's fan base. So you have someone who's really into the band, and they've got a decent social network, and they've got lots of other people. And they now have an opportunity to talk other people into the band who are not part of the fan club already.
So there's a company doing exactly that, based in Australia called Posse, and the way it works is you provide some sort of incentive for your super fan. For example, they get to come and hang out with you and drink champagne in a bathtub, and then in order to get that, they will promote the shit out of your concert to other people. So in Australia, it's actually been really effective, and they have what's called the Posse of these super fans who basically go around selling tickets on the band's behalf at primary value. They're trying to port it into other markets. I don't know if it will be a success in the UK or the US or not, because fan clubs I don't think they're as developed in Australia as they are in the States. But the core idea is exactly what you're describing. Like, like really incentivize.
Street team.
Yeah, it's
but-
like a street team who can sell tickets.
See another question up here. So.
Hi. So my question goes again to the secondary market. Do you think it's done more good or more bad? And I'm not talking about, say I buy 3-4 tickets, I can't go to the show, so I sell them. I'm talking about the people who buy the 50 tickets, whatever it may be, and then you put it on StubHub or wherever it may be for a very high premium. I know, for example, Ian, I believe Songkick does send you to some secondary markets, correct?
Yeah, I said that earlier. Yeah.
So do you think the secondary market, do you think it's done more good or more bad for, because after all, I mean, you're getting, all the tickets are being sold, and for the artists at least, the tickets are sold, but do you think it's done more good or more bad as far as motivating people to go, and is it almost too expensive now to go to a show?
I mean, I think they're filling a need, right? Like, fans currently find out about shows too late, and they need to buy tickets, and other people are willing to sell those tickets at a high inflated price.
But if the secondary marketers' bots hadn't tied up all the tickets in the
Well,
purchasing
yeah.
process, then fan A probably would have been able to buy the ticket.
Well, I
the
think
first
you need
time
to
around.
differentiate between inventory that is fan-to-fan inventory, so it's like you couldn't go and you sell it to someone else, and inventory that's like sketchy broker to fan. And I think we can all agree on this panel that it's a really, really bad thing that the latter exists. Right. And I think that the solution is kind of like the recorded music when everyone was complaining about file sharing and piracy, except it's weirdly inverted in that, like, the fact that the secondary market exists actually means there's more money being made in live music rather than less. And the perverted thing is that the artists aren't seeing any of that. Like, that's when StubHub resell it, like, it's the broker and the so I think the artists just need to get a lot smarter about either controlling their inventory so it doesn't happen, or pricing it more accurately to reflect demand.
And a place where a peer-to-peer place where it's like, you know what, I got these tickets and I have something to do that night and I can't go. That's fine. But that's not secondary market. That's just.
But and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've done a lot of shows now. Kind of have like a limit to how many tickets an individual can buy,
purchase.
can purchase.
Yeah,
And
but
I feel like
then we go through and we scan it afterwards, and person X went in 4 times and bought 4 tickets, and certainly
With 4
not.
different credit
Which,
cards.
With 4 different credit cards and 4
kind
different
of
addresses.
It's amazing to me because like so many people can't even
But it-
get onto
Right.
that one time.
But it's a totally solvable problem, just to be clear. Like, when anyone ever says, this is too hard, we can't figure it out, it's too complex, IDs don't work, like, Glastonbury in the UK is the hottest ticket in town for the entirety of the year. And Glastonbury, by introducing correct amounts of technology and identification, literally took the secondary market out in a single day. Like, it does not exist for Glastonbury, which is the hottest ticket in the entirety of the UK. So it totally can be solved if venues, ticketing agencies, promoters all work together to deploy the right technology.
And to get in, people are to get into Glastonbury, as I understand it, you do have to. There are a lot of things that have to fall into place. That your print-at-home ticket has to have it has to match your name. There are all these different things. If I did that for every one of my shows, it would become a disincentive.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I
It's
think-
one thing when you're going to Glastonbury. You're like, I'll jump through the hoop.
Yeah, I think that the smaller shows, the club shows where there's no real secondary market existing, like, are the vast majority. The secondary market
Yes.
only exists for like 20% of shows, right? So you don't actually have. I mean, you're like one of the few venues that will have a ton of sold-out shows that go on the secondary market in DC. Like, if you figured out a technology solution for your biggest shows, it'd probably take like 50% of the secondary market out in one go.
Probably. And it's not a huge problem for us at the club level, at the concert level, at the bigger shows. It probably isn't. And so do I think that secondary ticketing, I don't think it helps under any circumstances. It doesn't, do the Rolling Stones really need to hype their show more so that, some 50-year-old guys can spend $300 for a $100 ticket or whatever? I don't think so. So I don't think it helps anything.
There's also quite a weird dynamic that it creates in that there's a whole world of people who are trying to help tickets get sold and want to get compensated for their role in promoting that show. And if you sell a ticket through a primary ticket vendor like Ticketmaster, you will often get paid like 2% of the face. And if you sell it through like StubHub, you get 10% of the face. So like, you've got this very weird world where anyone doing promotion for concerts is way more incentivized to try and sell a secondary market ticket. And we have competitors in our space who will list the secondary tickets intermingled with the primary tickets with no prices in there, because clearly they want the fan to buy the secondary market ticket because they get paid more on it. And I think that's, it's just setting up a very weird economy. And the way we do it is we list them by price with secondary clearly broken out as reseller tickets. And they always say like £5 bazillion next to them. So like, you go down that route, you know what you did yourself into, right?
All right, we're going to do another question. Hopefully that has to do with the magical mashup between live music and social network.
It doesn't, not at all, sorry. Donna, before you mentioned the customer service problems with servicing a secondary ticket market, and we've all been pretty well conditioned to consider the secondary ticket market this kind of evil realm of people who snatch up all the tickets for shows and then inflate the prices and things like that. Another way of describing it and describing those folks is a really efficient price finding mechanism. In other words, if you're selling tickets to a show for $40 and someone can go out and buy a block of 20 of those and sell them at 60, you probably should have charged more,
The market
or
will
at least
bear.
for a part. What's that?
What the market will bear.
Well, and that's obviously a very one-sided way to look at it. But yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, obviously, when you're pricing shows, you're trying to get as much as possible.
And the irony is that we, as concert promoters / capitalists, would love very much to sell those tickets at $60 often.
So outside of the customer, if you could get rid of the customer service issues, just wave a magic wand and they're gone, and essentially bring that secondary market in-house, so that you could partake in the upside, not via StubHub or some other third party, but you could directly partake in the upside of that, even share that revenue with acts or however it is that your agreements might be. Is there any kind of other structural reason or institutional reason for that not to occur?
You mean like Tickets Now, when Bruce Springsteen got reviled for participating in what Ticketmaster did, which was exactly that?
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, Ticketmaster had to shed Tickets Now, which was their in-house secondary ticketing market. That was exactly their thought. Let's bring it in-house, we'll control it, we'll make the artist complicit, they'll get a piece of it, we get a piece of it, and everybody will live happily ever after, until a member of Congress from New Jersey found out about it, and somebody was upset to find out that everybody was doing this. Our industry has conferences upon conferences about ticketing, and should we do an auction where you put them out there, and we've got 1,200 tickets to sell, and they'll start at the top and go to the highest bidder and then see where they go. Artists, at the end of the day, don't want their tickets to be sold for $60. They struggle to say yes to a $40 ticket, because they don't think that their fans should have to pay more for that, or they don't want that to be a barrier to entry for any artist. So they tell us, no, you greedy person, you can't sell our ticket for $50. We want it to be $40 and not a dime more, because at $40, that's how we can get our $35,000 or whatever. So there's a dance. There's this dance between art and commerce, and they're so insistent. Artists really do determine the ticket price, and they are vehement at maintaining the ticket price often lower, because it's really important to them that they're fans. And so that's why sometimes they wanted to get in on the secondary market part of it, so that they weren't leaving, the manager's going, but we're leaving money on the table. And there hasn't been a way figured out that if you brought it in-house, you get in trouble.
I'm not sure there is a very elegant way of getting rid of it entirely, because at the core, I don't think it's a trade-off between commerce and art. I think it's a trade-off between commerce and community. So, the reason that tickets are priced lower is because the people who go to the show are partly responsible for how good the show is, right? It's not just the artist or the venue, it's the fans, in the audience. And if Arcade Fire priced their New York show at whatever the market would bear, it would just be a bunch of bankers standing around, all buying Cristal from the bar, It wouldn't be the fans who were there when they released their first single, So
that's a very good point.
I think that, you'll never get the prices at market level, because you'll just end up with really lame gigs. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense that the artists and the venues aren't participating in the inefficiency of the market. So something's got to be figured out. Like I think the long-term solution is that some form of secondary ticketing is enabled and the artist participates in it, and it's sort of transparent to everyone what's going on. Essentially, all the true fans can get in and then just fleece the hell out of the bankers who pay at the last minute $500 a ticket, and that money, by the way, goes back to the artist, which allows them to hopefully do more for their fans next time round.
I think we have time for one more question. If you want to throw in a comment.
I was just
while
going to say,
hike that
I mean, to bring it full circle, I think social media is the mechanism, right? So I think you identify people who are your fans, and at that point you can offer them the fan price, feeling pretty confident, you know, at some level of probability that they're not going to put those tickets on the secondary market. Then you take the rest of the tickets and you do either an auction, which I agree has not worked well almost anywhere it's been done, or something a little bit more controlled like dynamic pricing, like Major League Baseball is doing now, where you put ranges on it and you put limits on it. And
but I think it's very hard to prove the commitment of a fan through a like on a Facebook, or, you know, I think the classic way to prove whether you're a real fan of a band is what venues have always done: just make you wait in the cold for a bunch of hours to get a ticket, right? That really separates it out. So I think that it's probably going to be like venue lines.
Oh, right.
They played a show only for me, and I had to apologize to them because they came up from Nashville and I couldn't pay them. I
yeah.
In terms of social media and ticket giveaways, I know that 930 has done that on their Facebook, but have you ever tried doing like a soft sale through your Facebook rather than your newsletter in terms of that, or using Brightest Young Things to announce a show for you? And that way you're using your community rather than the fullest reach, you know, for like Justin Jones or something like that, who's small.
I think we come into play a lot closer to the date.
Yeah.
that's how VYT is used by venues.
But no, it would be interesting. It's harder to every marketing plan every on sale, everything we do, we have to run by the artist, and so they're more sanguine with us doing it with the broadest reach, which would be our email list, than necessarily confining it to our Facebook. I think the idea of doing something like that, like an on sale with you all, would be fantastic. I just don't know that, and we can try it. I just don't know that we would be able to get the buy-in. They're like, who is this BYT?
Yeah, I think the problem is like then those people that have depended on this, you know, and have signed up for it would feel gypped.
Yeah, we do have to.
Another.
We do have to protect. In order for our email list to have the power that it does, we do have to protect that and have that be. We have done a couple like Twitter things where we've announced 10 tickets are released, and we announce them through Twitter. And that's the only place that you can find out that these tickets are available. We do some of that kind of thing, but we have to be very protective. You know, we only send out one email a week unless we have so many shows that we have to do more, and we never sell advertising for it, and we're not going to pester anybody.
Cool. Well, we got to wrap up. Love to go down the line and just take 1 minute to talk about, in the next 5 years, this magical mashup between live music and social networks, how you see it changing the ticketing landscape 5 years from now as opposed to the last 5 years. Where do you think we're going to be in 5 years?
I think you'll be able to buy tickets directly on social media portals like Facebook. I think that'll be the big technical difference.
And not very long from now.
And not even 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Like maybe this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, I don't, other than that, other than the transaction changing, I don't know how much of it it's still, you got to put a show on sale and you have to fight the noise, right? So maybe it's more in.
I think it would be interesting to sort of see, obviously say like the ticket charges went down, whatever, like things are moving in that direction. It is becoming, more and more about how do I make you want to use me and not something else. So I think the most interesting part lies in, what the ticket selling operations, are going to be ready to do before everyone else moves in-house or whatever else, that like a lot of people actually are sort of, because like, I don't know how many, there's like some ridiculous amount of tickets, say, sold in Washington, D.C., and someone makes money on it that is not the artist and that is not the venue or the promoter. So that's, will that amount of money become less and less? Or that's what I'm curious to see. Because I'll still bike to the venue to buy my ticket.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm betting my future, I guess, on our company keeping to grow as fast as it is right now. And if that happens, we'll be bigger than Ticketmaster Live Nation by the end of next year. And if that happens, then there'll be a home for fans on the web that isn't about selling the ticket. It's about discovering the concert and being excited about that. And I think that net, what I overall hope happens is right now 50% of tickets go unsold. I hope like 5 years from now that's like 5%, something like that. And more people are going to see live music and having great nights out.
Cool. Well, if you wouldn't mind, please thank the panelists for doing this. Thank you guys for coming.